Assalamu alaikum. Rasul Lut was a warrior who fought the class system of his society. His story is a universal one that applied to all societies back then, applies to stories to societies like his today, and will continue to apply in the future as well. Yet his grand legacy remains overshadowed by the biblical account of what his Qawm did, which is homosexuality, as we all know. But as we've discussed so far in the series, and this being the third video of the series, per the Quran, strangely enough, his Qawm did not do homosexuality, nor did the Quran ever explicitly call this act out to be haram. But what we found throughout this series is something really quite bizarre, quite strange. Even though Allah did not say something to be haram, we Muslims don't seem to like it. We are not happy with what Allah has not mentioned. We'd much rather it be haram. So today, we've gathered together, myself and Dr. Iqbal, to have a little chat about this. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Iqbal. How are you doing?
Assalamu alaikum. How are you, Musa? I'm good.
Keeping well, keeping well. This series has raised quite a few questions, very pointed questions on the behalf of those who listen and those who ponder the Quran.
First of all, I should appreciate you, congratulate you for doing such a marvelous work. I was of the same thinking, and I second your opinion, what you have derived from through these all ayats. But you took the heed and you took the lead in explaining all these ayats. And very well done, Musa. The time, the effort, the flow charts which you have made, I'm really very impressed. Really very impressed. I must appreciate your effort you have put in. Maybe some people will like it, and maybe some people will don't like it. But that is their I mean, it's their will. But the effort you have put in, I must say, that is wonderful.
Shukran, Dr. Iqbal. If that's okay, we'll keep this moving, because the intent is today, Dr. Iqbal and I talked about after the second video, and we said we would like to hear from yourselves as well, the listeners who maybe have been wanting to ask questions. Some of you did put questions in the comments, but quite a lot wanted to talk personally as well. So today would be that opportunity, should you want. But what we want to do today is kind of set the scene, kind of answer all the questions that have come up throughout the two videos, and make sure the position is clear, in particular, whether this act is haram or not. What does the Quran say about it, and why doesn't it say it, and where should our stance be? So we want to talk about that, put forward a position that we think is based on the Quran, and then would like to get some feedback from yourselves. So 2 videos in, as I was saying before, strangely and sadly, Rasul Lut's legacy remains tarnished because of the supposed homosexuality that his Qawm never did per the Quran, based upon an act that the Quran does not even talk about. And this is quite a sad state of affairs, that throughout my life, and I spoke with Dr. Iqbal yourself as well, I have not found a single person from my Pakistani community with the name Lut. Lut is a Rasul. He is somebody important in the Quran. Yet the name has become mahjur in our societies. No children are named after him. And in Pakistan, the act of homosexuality, man with a man, is called lawathat, or in the Arabic world, the term has become liwat. And what we have done is we've taken this great personality with a very different mission, a much grander and nobler objective, and we have kind of taken this name to mean something that we consider to be ugly, to be dirty. Muqazzaz.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Can I add something over here? Yes, you are very right. People don't keep this name in Arab or in Pakistan or India or wherever Muslims are there. They don't keep this name Lut. But you will be surprised that I have seen so many people with the name of Lut after the coming of revelation of Quran, especially in Tabai and Tabain. I give you one example. There was a man called Lut bin Yahya. His name was actually Abu Mukhannaf. He was the writer of the story of Karbala. His name was Lut bin Yahya. Now, this name was there in the society of Arab till Tabari or Ibn Kasir came and they wrote all those things in the Tafasir. and people now got back that this name should not be used. So before those tafasirs came, Lut was a very popular name in Arabs.
Interesting. It has changed now. Obviously, we won't find that today. I put up I asked people on the comments before, and there are a couple of people responded. One of them was from the Maldives. So they still, apparently, some of their children are called Lut, but not in the Pakistani society, at least. I have, throughout my life, never encountered anybody with that name.
Never.
Yeah. What it has led to is another matter. So we look at the story of Lut in the Quran, and we kind of look at, honestly, without any preconceived notions, what does the Quran say? And we look at it, we talk about it. But then there's another matter, and this is a matter that's caught the fancy of people who are interested in the story, and that is to do with homosexuality. So let's be very clear, let's be very precise, whether people like it or not. And at this point, I'm kind of past caring for what people say, because I, to the best of my knowledge and ability, am sticking to what Allah says or not says. It doesn't say. Homosexuality, the act, the practice, is not called haram by Allah in the Quran. However, as I said in the very beginning, we Muslims have problems in accepting that. We want it to be haram. We based its tahrim off the supposed act of Qawm Lut, which they did not do. But we are not happy with it. Why do we insist on making it haram? Now, this is something that we will talk about. So as I was saying in the beginning, Dr. Iqbal and I would like to present a united opinion on this based upon the Quran, and then would like to have a dialogue. So one thing that from the very beginning we've done on this channel, and Dr. Iqbal has been a part of on this journey with me for a very long time, a zawj, Quranic zawj, so to speak, not a wife, but somebody who's got like-minded interest in the same love of the Quran. We want to have dialogues. It's not unlike some places where it's a one-way street where I will tell you what you should think. Thou must think and talk the way I tell you, the way I teach you. No, it's not that. It is not a qaria. It should not be, one person just speaking or two people just speaking and not having any feedback, accepted if that's against their view. It is not a qaria. Anybody with an evidence-backed view based on the Quran is always welcome, will be welcome, and as part of that, you could join us live today if you want, if you feel comfortable. It is a complex topic, and so some people might not be happy, but if you are, you can have a say on this topic. Dr. Bal, you want to say anything about this invitation?
I'm your Zoj today. I'm your partner in the mission. So the word Zoj very well explained over here, that I'm your partner. Zoj does not mean always a wife, as you have very clearly explained in this whole series. So, and the people joining us, they will be our Zoj. Good.
So to look at the today's agenda, we would like to go in order to have an argument that is coherent, that is consistent, and that meets the Quranic criteria for how we should present our views. So first of all, before we get into this particular topic, I would like to say a few things, a few clarifications on a more personal nature, because they kept on coming up, and they came from certain segments of certain people that I think deserve to be answered. So I would like to clear them off, and then we'll get into the meat and gravy of today's discussion, which is, well, who makes something haram in Islam? And this is an important question. So is something not called haram, like necrophilia, does that automatically become halal? So if something is not called haram, is that halal by default? That's a question that is the real crux of this entire discussion, and something we want to talk about. After that, I'm going to offer us a thought experiment. So everybody joining today, or when you listen to it any point in the future, I would encourage you to become part of this experiment. What if the Quran did not have the Lut qissa at all? If there was no Lut, if there was no Qawm, there was nothing like that, what would you do in terms of homosexuality? Would you still call that haram? And then the next question is, a lot of people argued and put forward their views on, well, brother, homosexuality should be haram because it's dirty, because it's this, because it's that, because science says this, because primates do this, all sorts of reasons, all sorts of justifications for why this should be haram. But it comes down, when it comes to the core of the issue, we don't have the right, or do we have the right to make something haram when Allah did not say it? So, yes, we've heard a lot of those reasons. What is our position on people presenting consequence-based opinions on, well, this thing should be haram because A, B, C, D? We would like to have a talk and present a view on that as well. And after that, we'll open the link up, and if somebody is interested, they are welcome to come and join us. Dr. Bala, any words from you before I get into the more personal nature of this video, where I'd like to talk about my own experience with these videos? Yes.
Two things I would like to add to your things. When I graduated in 1981, and we studied psychology at that time, so homosexuality was considered as sexual perversion. It was in the books of psychology as a sexual perversion. And it was not a normal human behavior or whatever. But now, look, the times have changed. And now they have taken out this one as sexual perversion from the books of psychology, and they are calling it a human nature. I can't still grasp how can this be human nature. One thing. Second thing is that if something is not haram in Quran, does it become halal? No, these are two different things. It's not haram declared by Allah, but at the same time, it is not halal, or it is not a thing which should be appreciated. It is not the thing which the society should do. No, still it is considered to be a bad omen or sort of a bad stigma to the people who do this. In Australia, we have this law now passed by the parliament that LGBT movements and everything, they've got rights. What is the percentage? 51%. They won by 51%. But still, 49% of the Australians, they thought, no, it should not be there. So it's only a matter of 1%. Yeah. Still, I can tell you so many examples in my practice in Australia that how Australians feel about the act of this homosexuality in a negative way. They don't take it as a positive way. Even my receptionist, we had a very big discussion with her, and she said, Iqbal, this is absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong.
Yeah. So this is something I think, so for those listening, we will cover this again at point number 4. So I guess if we take a step back, what we're saying is we can have reasons for why, it is right or wrong. And we want to cover this from a holistic perspective. But ultimately, if we refer back to the Quran, which is the purpose of this channel, we are, first of all, going to talk about who makes something haram in Allah's deen and whether this is haram or not. And if it's not, what should the behavior, what should the outlook be? How should we as Muslims engage, and how should we interact with this particular knowledge? So, Dr. Bal, if you'd like to give me the permission, there are a few things that I'd like to talk just from my personal experience.
Go ahead and put your
Okay, all right. So those listening in today, those listening in from tomorrow, Dr. Bal, I'll put you on mute for a little bit if you don't mind. I think there's a little bit of background noise coming from your side.
So.
Yep.
I think so.
Yep. Thank you. Yep. So those who know me, though you know I don't like talking about myself, and there are many reasons for that. It's not about me, it's about my journey towards understanding the Quran and talking and engaging with you guys as part of that. I just like talking about myself. But as part of this series, enough allegations have been thrown at me that if I don't address them, they have the unfortunate effect of clouding the message of the Quran that I want us all to focus on. It is for that particular reason that I wanted to take this opportunity and clear up a few things. Because, as I said, if they don't get cleared up, some people would take my silence that I would like to be taken as a dignified silence to be the evidence of having done something wrong, when that is not the case. But I'm also not one that fans drama. I don't want that either. So I would like to put forward my position on some of those allegations, and then I'll move forward and I won't discuss them ever. And if anybody has got any questions after that, I'll point them back to this section. So first of all, what is my relationship with the Quran, and why does this channel exist? So let me clarify a few things from the beginning. Absolutely clear. I am a student of the Quran. Tilmith. I am not a teacher. I don't teach. I don't lecture. I don't seek to convert people to my understanding. All those who are listening in today, all those who will be listening in tomorrow, I'm not here to convince you to follow my thinking, nor am I teaching you something. I will remain a student. Secondly, on purpose, I make no money off the Quran. The videos, all of the videos, they are unmonetized. I don't get a single cent out of that. There are no super stickers on this channel either. I don't sell any courses on the Quran. I don't offer you any exclusive access to disclosures of the Quran if you pay me $20 a month or $30 a month. There's nothing like that. I seek nothing from you. Instead, I take time out of my life, family, entertainment, sports, things I could be doing. I like computer games. I like writing, all that sort of stuff, to talk about the Quran and its themes. And I'll be very clear. I've been on this channel about a year and a half, coming to almost 2 years. There have been many opportunities to profit, make money out of what I've been doing here. People offer me donations all the time. You know who you are. You've emailed me. You've talked to me. You've sometimes come online. You put those offers on comments. I get offers from you guys all the time. I could also coach you. I could offer private one-on-one courses. Give me this much, and we'll sit together, and I'll teach you, etc., etc. I can hoard whatever knowledge I have, only for those exclusive few who pay me. I could do that. I can honestly profit out of this. I can fund my lifestyle or my journey in the Quran through your money. I choose not to do so. I don't choose to make a single cent out of my relationship with the Quran on this channel. Why? Well, I want to set a little bit of a background, and I'll talk about why I don't do that. For 1,200 plus years, access to the Quran, well, it had been usurped. It had been taken away from the masses, and it had been concentrated in the hands of the few, the clergy, the people who went in and twisted the meaning and set up this parallel religion and controlled access to. You guys know the history. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of it. But if we continue to come back to the Quran, its message, words, and its terms were never owned by one person or faction or religion, nor will that be the case. Any one person's fahm of the Quran is that person or the association's own fahm. That does not apply to anybody else. The Quran, in my opinion, is rich, is infinitely dynamic. It is meant to be for all peoples of all times that they were, they are, and they will be. And no one has the exclusive right to its interpretation. So when I talk about the Quran, not seeking any money, I am here on this channel to present my views and spark conversations about the Quranic message. That is the primary reason. I want to spark conversations like today, conversations that we've had throughout this series, for example, things that I've talked about. I like that. I admire the ability for us to come back and talk about the Quran from the Quran. Secondly, and I've always been open on that, I talk about topics that are interesting to me, that I find interesting. And this is me being very selfish, perhaps, about it. But as a student of the Quran, the things that call out to me based upon my life history, my experiences, what I find interesting, and to the best of my ability, I explore them. And when I do, talking about them on this channel forces me to be very academic, to the best of my limited ability when I present them. For example, the story of Lut. I kind of had some idea of what the story was about before I started researching it. But when I knew that I was going to present this in front of you, it's kind of this peer, if you've worked in the academia, when you present a paper in front of the others, you want to be doing as much as you can to confirm that your facts are in order. Or even if they're not, at least you're being mutawadir, you're being humble about what you're presenting, and you're allowing yourself the opportunity to retreat and correct your views if and when they were wrong. So I talk about what I talk about in order for me to focus on things I'm interested in. And that is what you will see more of going forwards as well. And as part of that, I love the fact I find like-minded azwaj. I call Dr. Iqbal my Zawj from before. He is part of this journey. He's one of those people who I would not have met. And as a result of that, he and I, we talk all the time. There are some other people I talk to all the time. Relationships that are based upon the Quran, they are wonderful. I have always appreciated it. And as part of this journey today, those who are commenting in here right now, those people who will be listening in tomorrow, you guys are all have the potential to be azwaj in this movement. I want nothing more than that. I love it. And that is a reason for why I'm here. Yes, finding like-minded azwaj who equally love the Quran. And it is a very funny time of history. I think we're finally, for the past 20, 30 years, I think the Quran has, after 1300 years, 1200 years of this jumud, of this getting stuck, has become free. It's in the hands of the thinking people. It's not in the hands of the clergy, those who dress in a certain they wear funny hairs, they talk in a certain way, they go to the same universities, they talk the same talk. It's in the hands of the thinking people. And I want to be part of this part of the history. And I think 50 years from now, 100 years from now, when 1600 years would have passed since the arrival of the Quran, I'm confident people would look back at these years, at these formative years. They'd say 1970 onwards, 1980 onwards, there were people who went against the grain, who started talking about the Quran from the Quran. They had the courage to reject what their forefathers had taught them, to talk about and focus back on the Quran. And that I was part of that journey. I want to be able to talk to my children and say, what you see as normalized, what you see is a normal understanding of the Quran, was not the case when I was your age. This was not the case. We are at the cusp of this great movement, and I want to be part of that. As a side note, before going to the next point, I am from Pakistan, and those who are not in Pakistan don't have any idea of what the culture there still is. Those who are in the comments, I can see a couple of you guys, and I know who you are as well. And I know that a couple of you, I'll name because I don't think you'll mind. I just saw you, Osman, there. So I know Osman is from Pakistan. He's a courageous man. He talks about what he talks about, whether I agree or not, but he's open about it. But in Pakistan, because of the sentiments of people out there, I have been forced to keep my identity hidden. Moses is not my real name. Everybody, it's not a secret. It is a name that I've picked. The first name is an abbreviation that I had to pick because YouTube doesn't let you just have one name. So I had to come up, and I've got a nickname, and as part of that, I took L and Moses because I've always loved the idea of that amazing prophet that's always in the Quran. That's not my real identity. I chose this to talk about the Quran without the fear of being curtailed by what my views, how would they be taken in the society, unfortunately, where I live in. But as a result of that, over time, I quite like how this has turned out to be. Why? Because the moment I've been talking about the Quran, the focus has been not on me. I'm just a voice. The focus has always gone back to the Quran, to the message of Allah. I, as part of this, A, I'm not making any money. B, I'm not becoming rich. There's no chance of me becoming a cult ever or overshadowing the Quranic message, because I am nothing more than a voice. And the voice is saying to you nothing more than, hey, here are what the ayat say in my fahm. If you want to study more, here are the ayat. Here's the reason why I said what I said. Take this, go and research on your own. So I really like the way this has turned out, to be honest. So this channel is a labor of love. I am here because I do believe, as part of my salat, and those who listened to me talk in the salat in the Quran series, I do think this is part of my salat. This is part of my two-way communications. This is my social responsibility. This is my form of the salat, to give back what I've received. I've received from many people, from many great people throughout my life, and a little bit of what I've received, I want to give back. And that is why I'm here. If I try and summarize and go back to some of those questions that people have asked, I don't believe that Quran, somebody I just noticed in the comments, Quran is open source. It is open source. It has been like this for 1450 odd years. And I don't think that's why people should charge money to teach the Quran. That I find on a fundamental level wrong. And even though people have reasons and I can kind of see them, I don't agree with that. And that is why I don't charge. I don't make any money. But also as part of that, I'm not beholden to anybody. You can't tell me, I'm looking at some of the comments, student or Sadi or sale tray, they can't tell me, or rabbit tray, you can't tell me, you can't force me, hey, Musa, go and talk about this, this, and that. No, I want to do what I find interesting for me as a student, because this is this is a person's honest attempt to find answers and clarifications on things that he's interested in. Having said that, I have never, nor will I claim perfection. I'm a student. I always say verify against the Quran. I might make mistakes. This is my fahm. Don't be stuck to it. I invite critique. I'm a seeker. I'm a muhtadi, and that's all there will be. One more point I like to make. Some people become very, very particular. They become very emotionally in terms of, oh, this person was my student at one point, and as a result of that association for a little bit, that has now become a lifelong debt that can never be paid off, or that person will never be able to go past my shadow, or whatever that person is now doing is a direct result of what I've done. So I'd like to clarify that point. As a lifelong student, I have and will learn from many people, or as the Quran says, they buyut. There are many buyut, and I eat. Akal in the Quran is not eating. The Quran does not talk about eating, all the biryani and that sort of stuff in the Quran. I have been eating, consuming from their buyut. As long as those people have evidences, they provide claims, I will take from you, I will learn from you. And I honestly don't care. You might disagree, some of you who are listening in. I will learn, study from anybody, whether you're a Sunni, whether you're Shia, whether you're Quran only, whether you're an ex-Muslim, whether you are a secular anthropologist, you're a scientist, you're a historian, you're a philosopher, you believe in conspiracies. If you offer me a new angle of looking at the infinite text of the Quran that I could not have come up with before, and you got evidence, you got something interesting to say, I am interested. I do want to talk to you. I do want to learn from you. But having said that, as a student, on purpose, I do not identify with any one person or that one person's movement. We follow Allah and we associate with Him. Throughout my journey, there have been many nujum, najm. Again, it's not the stars the Quran talks about. Nujum, literally, as we say in English as well, those stars, superstars. There have been many superstars. Dr. Iqbal and I actually talked about this maybe, I think, 3 or 4 months ago, that some people, they come and you talk with them, you learn from them, and they're these stars, and everything they say is shiny and new and exciting. But over time, it kind of fades a little bit, and we kind of go past them. So all of those teachers, throughout my life up until now and in the future, they will and they have taught me things. I'm thankful to them all. But like an athlete who's always improving, getting better, I have found that like a good student, there's a time when you have to outgrow the shadow of your teacher. You have to realize that this teacher from this birth, in this particular attempt, he's very good at this thing, but he's missing the rest. And similarly for the other, and for the third and the fourth. But the moment you tie yourself to any one person, or any one movement, or any one thought, well, then you have kind of gone back to the same riwayat-infested mess that you were a part of before. And that is a reason I've never mentioned, ever, of people that I have talked to throughout my life, people that I do talk to right now, people who I will talk about in the future, because that is building a cult of personality that I'm frankly not going to be a part of. And as a result of that, there are people, good or bad, that I've encountered in this journey, who in hindsight have turned out to be quite petty, that they see drama, there's quite a bit of malaise. Some people claim exclusivity over the Quran, or its works, or its methodology, or its terms. And it's as if you cannot think the same thing based upon this open source unless you were to be taught that in a specific way by the one particular person, by the one particular movement. That is not the Quran. That is not the Quran. My advice to all of you is to learn from all those buyut, just like I have, but don't be overshadowed. Don't let your spark of creativity be dulled by any one person or by any one movement. You don't want to leave cults to join more cults. That is the danger. That is something that we should not become a part of. It is the Quran. I'd like to summarize this. It is not about the person. This channel here is not a qaria. As I've always said, it's not me who talks. Sometimes Dr. Iqbal and I disagree on a finer point on some very academic thing, and that's fine. That's normal. Here on this channel from the beginning, for those who've seen this, reason on my videos you will find a lot of terms is because I talk about a lot of things. I talk to a lot of people. And in my beginning, for those who know, I started talking to the ex-Muslims because I was generally interested in seeing if they could be reasoned with. What turned out was a completely different outcome. But from my perspective, I believe in open discourse where so long we are talking back to the source, we should be talking. We should not be a qaria where it's one person's thought, there's one methodology, and that's it. That is not how the Quran works. I will engage with you throughout this. Today, pass tomorrow, so long there's no drama and you are willing to think. So reminder, Quran has no exclusivity. There are people who are very good at something, awesome at something, but they miss the woods for the trees. To give you, I won't name names, and I think people who are keeping up with the scene, you guys will all know who I'm talking about. So some great scholars of the Quran today, right now, living people, some are awesome, but they're stuck with the riwayat. You can see those blind spots as students. You say, oh, this guy's awesome, but he can't get out of the riwayat. His heart is still there. Or some can't get past the sunnah. They're still stuck with the sunnah. Some are mesmerized by the words and grammar and structure in this. Some see Prophet Muhammad everywhere in the Quran. So no matter what ayah you pick up or what name you pick up, somehow all of that goes back to Prophet Muhammad. And they thus make the message static. Some are stuck with ma'ani satriya, level 1 meanings. They can't get past that. I say we should respect that. We should celebrate this. As I've always said, it's not the people, it's the Quran, is the argument what somebody is presenting. I have blind spots. Dr. Iqbal, I'm sure, would admit he has got blind spots. All of these people have blind spots. We can't realize what others can see in us, but that's okay. That's okay. Let's just stick to the Quran. Let's not be petty or emotional or find conspiracies or create conspiracies just because this sounds like an easy out. Let's critique the idea, not the person. Let's discuss the Quran. Let's be the Azwaj who ponder the Quran together and be open to learning pretty much like the discussion that we've been having around on this channel. And just as a side note of always wanting to be in a position where you learn and you say, well, I want to think more. I'll refer this as a side note and I'll move on because I'd like to cover this in detail later. As part of what I presented, people countered back with evidence saying that when you said Lut was just a Rasul, here are a couple of ayat that it seemed to make him to be one of those Anbiya, or at least they say that he was given Nubuwah. I've looked at them. As a result of that, I have got an opinion that I would want to present. But this is part of this dialectics, this two-way communications, where I have got Azwaj who come to me, who critique me. It's not a career, it's not a cult. We are learning together, and this is how it should be. For those who listen, those who are wanting to take anything from my lesson, learn from everybody, but go past them. And if you are here today, go past me in the future. You should not be stuck with me or what I think. I would be actually happier. I will be happier if my children know more about the Quran in their life than me. And that's completely fine. So no one owns the Quran. And I'll sign off on this very boring personal reflections part. No one owns the Quran. And we did not leave these riwayat and this madhab to become slaves to someone else. We did not do that. We should just stick with the Quran. And after that, now that I'm done, I'll come back to the topic. But Dr. Iqbal, I don't know this was largely me just talking about some of the questions that came my way. I don't know if you want to add anything more. If not, we can just continue to the topic.
I think you should continue with the other evidences.
Okay, awesome. So sorry for all of those who don't know what's been happening in the comments, etc. I apologize if this might have been boring. This could have been a bit boring, but I had to talk about that because I think this had to come out. We're back to the topic now, and we won't talk about that boring stuff now. So, topic: who makes something haram in the Quran? Is something not made haram then automatically halal? And lastly, if homosexuality is not called haram explicitly by Allah, can we, based upon whatever reason, can we make it to be haram? So who makes things haram? Rabal, did you want to read this out, or shall I do that?
It's very small letters for me.
Okay, all right, not a problem.
Okay.
That's fine. I can read it, then you can have a comment. I think as we talked about before. Yep. So it's a very simple question with a very simple answer that I don't think we know. Question: who makes things or acts haram in Islam? It's a very simple answer. Allah does. There's only one mufti of Islam, and that one mufti is Allah. He says something is haram, and that is it. Not even Nabi Muhammad, not even Nabi Muhammad could make something haram in Allah's deen. Ya ayyuhan Nabi, lima tuharrim ma halallahu lak, tabtaghi mardata azwajik, wallahu ghafurur rahim. O Nabi, why do you make haram what Allah permitted for you, seeking to please your partners. Allah is protecting, connecting, and merciful. Deval, any word?
Yeah, very clear ayat. Even the Nabi is
Okay.
not allowed. Yeah.
Second one, there are 4 ayat I like to present on this topic, because this is something that keeps coming up and we keep finding it very difficult to believe. So 4 ayat should hopefully be enough for those who wish to listen to the Quran. No human, no matter the culture, race, the way it dresses, etc., dictates to Allah. فَوَيْلٌ لِلَّذِينَ يَكْتُبُونَ الْكِتَابَ بِأَيْدِيهِمْ. So woe to those who write, compose the Al-Kitab, the law, with their own hands or themselves. ثُمَّ then يَقُولُونَ, and then afterwards they say, هَذَا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. This is from Allah. Why? لِيَشْتَرُوا بِهِ ثَمَنًا قَلِيلًا. So that they may exchange with it for a little price. That is not the, people don't make things halal. People don't make things haram. Also, we should be very careful. Now, I've said this many a time on the comments, many a time. Please, if you didn't know, that's fine. But you know now, if you're listening in, don't invent stories in Allah's name. Don't say about Allah what He did not say, no matter the justification. وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنِ افْتَرَى عَلَى اللَّهِ كَذِبًا أَوْ قَالَ أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ وَلَمْ يُوحَى إِلَيْهِ شَيْءٌ وَمَنْ قَالَ سَأُنْزِلُ مِثْلَ مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ. Who does greater wrong than someone who invents falsehood or makes up a story against Allah, or says, oh, it was revealed to me, when nothing was revealed to him, or says, I will reveal the like of what Allah revealed. Allah did not say something. You and I should stop there. Don't make something up in His name. He did not say it. Stop. You can come up with justifications, and we'll talk about that, but don't invent a lie in His name. Last ayah, remember, only one mufti of Islam. No matter how many Darul Ifta you see in your country or throughout the world, or how many legions of muftiyun we see being graduating every year, there is one mufti of Islam. And that one mufti says, وَلَا تَقُولُوا, and do not say, لِمَا تَصِفُوا أَلْسِنَتُكُمْ, what your tongues assert, al-kadhib, the lie, هَذَا حَلَال وَهَذَا حَرَام, that this is lawful and this is unlawful. لِتَفْتَرُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ. So in order to invent lies and attribute them to Allah. Never ever say with your tongues, whilst you know, don't make up those things. Oh, this is halal, oh, this is haram. A Muslim, when they read this ayah, they should stop right there. Dr. Paul, anything on this section?
Very clear ayats you have brought over. And it's a very clear message from Allah that anything which you invent is cursed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the question that was very clearly answered, people did not like. But I'll pause this here so we can answer this vehemently and very clearly. Did Allah call homosexuality haram in the Quran? Answer is no. The only evidence that's put by people, as in the story of Rasul Lut, that has been covered very explicitly in video 2 of the Lut series. So the question then it raises is this: is something not called haram then automatically halal? So people, they ask me all the time, oh, so Musa, you're saying homosexuality is not haram. By the way, I don't say it. Allah doesn't say it. But if you're saying homosexuality is not haram, then it must automatically make it halal. If it's not haram, it's halal. If it's night, it's day, right? Because these things are antonyms. Isn't that the case? I say, let's, for goodness sake, let's act like people of aql. And by the way, just on the comments, I just happened to see Brother Fidayakon, that's fine. I understand. We all make mistakes, and that's okay. So that's not a problem, brother. I'll come back to the video here. We should act like people of aql. Now, I'm going to ask you a simple question, and let's be honest. Did Allah call any of these things haram, or a million other things? Did Allah call necrophilia haram? Did He say biological or chemical warfare is haram? Did He say that you can't install cheat software on Counter-Strike so you can gain an edge over other players? Did He say insider trading is haram? Did He say that? He did not. Does Him not saying that now make these things halal as a default? No, it does not. Why would that be the case? Allah has gifted us humans the faculty to think. We are people of aql, we are people of shu'ur. We are beings that are different from the animal kingdom because we think. We have the power to reason. He has gifted us all. And this is going to be a controversial topic for some. But no matter your religion, no matter your background, we all have a predisposition to know the ma'ruf, the hasanat, good actions, from the sayyi'at, the bad actions. We all know that. Whether you are somebody from a primitive tribe in India, or from Brazil, or one of the Aboriginal people in Australia, no matter who you are, we, in the heart of our hearts, we know what's right, we know what's wrong. We will always know taking things from somebody when you don't have the right is wrong. That is wrong. Whatever term you come up with, that is wrong. Respecting your parents, we always know is right. There are things that we are pre-programmed, mubarmaj. We have this in part of our psyche. We know it. And when we understand this, when we read the Quran, don't expect the Quran to be, it's a cosmopolitan style that makes things out of fashion now. I'm showing my age here. Quran is not a cosmopolitan style manual or code book which says, or standard operating procedures of, hey, reader, 20 sins you must not do. And then you go 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, I'm not doing any of this. I'm fine. Or here are 11 tested rituals. And if you do them, you're going to enter the Jannah. No, it's nothing like that. Instead, he gives instructions. Allah gives you instructions and reminders. Dhikr, reminders, dhikra. These are all reminders of something that we know already. A reminder is for something that you know already. It's not something that you didn't know before. What is that reminder for? It's to that inbuilt sense of being good that Allah has put in all of us. That compass, the moral compass, is, the famous philosophical journey discussion of do we have a priori assumptions or not? Are we tabula rasa when we come to this world, or do we already know right from the wrong? Allah has given us all of those anfus, all those nufus. They know what's right or wrong. And when Allah says He gives us the Quran, He tells us instructions, they're always as people of thoughtful conduct, people who think to take principles and derive them for their time. So it's a constant application of those depending upon the context in which you find yourself in. When we read the Quranic qasas, the Quranic stories, from this perspective, like we read Lut and his struggle versus class structure of a society, we take from him examples of how we need to fight in our societies. Lut should be a warrior figure for all of those people fighting fasad in Pakistan. I can talk about Pakistan. I am from there. I know how terrible the situation there is. I know all of the corruption that has become part of our society, part of our fabric, because of who you are, who you're born. And if you become one of the rijal in Pakistan, not the men, rijal, powerful ones, authoritative ones, you are in Pakistan right now, you are crushing the nisa. All of those people who don't have, the not have people, they are being crushed, and things are happening at the expense of them in Pakistan. And that is why Pakistan has become this qarya, where everybody rejects, ignores the nisa, the people who have nothing, at the expense of giving all of that to the few rijal who control the society. We don't have a Lut in Pakistan. We don't have a Lut. We need a Lut. But we're never going to get the Lut in our Pakistani society, or take from his great story in the Quran lessons for us, because we will continue to downgrade what Lut's qawm did and what Lut did down to homosexuality. And Quran will never make sense to us. So coming back to the pre-programmed nature of how we know. Sayyi'at and hasanat are those categories Allah has left for humans for all ages, for all times, all cultures. As part of that, we need to discuss, debate, talk about them in our societies. This is not. I'll remind you, it is not a manual, unlike what we might hear, or my friend on WhatsApp today shared, or every Saturday or every Friday. I think every Friday when you wake up, you should read this dua. In the afternoon, this dua. And if you did the same thing at the time of before you go to sleep, all of your sins for the past week would be cleaned up. This is not the Quran. This is not a child's fairy Disney-like book that you're reading. It's nothing like that. It reminds you to go back to what you know. And it's a constant reminder that no matter what, be like Lut. Even if everybody says that, oh, this is right, this is okay, everybody does this in Pakistan. If I go back to my society, my country, you say, no, I'm going to be like Lut. I disagree. And I have the courage to form my ayal and my ahl and fight what I see is wrong. Let's return to homosexuality, because that is the crux of it, isn't it? Allah did not call it haram. Just like He did not call haram insider training or selling cheap software in Call of Duty or World of Warcraft or any of those I play Genshin. I used to play Genshin. People used to cheat. That is not what Allah made haram. But just because they're not haram does not make it halal as a default. You have aql, I have aql. Our innate sense of right and wrong and the ability and the willingness to engage with the societies is what should judge what we should be, how we should be treating with those things. End of the day, no matter what we end up calling these things, whether whether we take the even if we take the fiqh terms of this is hasan, this is mustahab, etc., or this is sayyid, this is ism, whatever. End of the day, we can never and should never say this thing is haram in the name of Allah when He Himself did not call it so. That is a very basic part of the methodology that we should have whenever we engage with the Quran. So if I try and summarize this, is homosexuality halal because Allah did not call it haram? Answer is no, not by default. Just like the other examples, it is for societies to talk and discuss. Dr. Iqbal, your thoughts?
Very clearly, very clear. I think you should go further.
Right, so this is a thought experiment. For all those watching now or who will watch in the future, let me ask you this question. Think about it. Let's pretend for a second. The Quran has no Lut. There's no qissa, there's no qawm, there's no rijal who are going to rijal with shahwa, as they tell us is all about sex. Let's say there are no pretty guests that are men that are coming in, and the whole city is fighting over those few precious commodities, and they can't control themselves. Their hormones are all out of place. Let's forget that. Let's say the qissa is not there at all. Would you then still call homosexuality haram? This is a question for all of you today or tomorrow. If Lut was not there in the Quran, would you call homosexuality haram? If you say yes, I'll be blunt, but I think we should be blunt with each other. If you say it's still haram, then you are taking other sources besides the Quran for his deen. You are doing shirk. It's not going to be something you like me saying. Now, but this is ultimately what it comes down to. You have now shared someone else's opinion in Allah's deen that He did not have the sultan for. Allah is no longer the only mufti of his deen. There are others. And you are still hesitant to let go of this traditional account, this biblical account, which has called something haram for 1200 years, despite Allah never saying it so. And this is also going to bite. And this is going to be not something people like, but I can speak as a man. I'm a man who's seen the world. I've done a lot of things. I'm not perfect. I've done many, many, many problems. I've got many, I've made many mistakes. I'm not going to dwell about them, but from a Pakistani mind frame, I'm being very blunt here. Those who have grown up in this repressive, male-dominated society of Pakistan, where some natural urges are just twisted and molded, and they become this terrible thing. We have got this hawas jinsi, this predisposition to find sex everywhere in things that are even innocuous to begin with. We see sex everywhere. I'm being very blunt here. We have got this hawas jinsi, or in Urdu, this jinski hawas, that makes us find women and sex everywhere. Even in the Quran, we say, rijal, men, nisa, women. Oh yeah, they must be doing this. If they're coming to men, they're coming to women, has to be this. If they're doing nikah, it has to be that one particular act. Everything becomes gendered. Everything becomes centered around a man versus woman. We start reading ayat like wudu, which start with men and women. And suddenly it says, men are, if you guys are touching women. And now we say, we have to now minus the women. Women get minused. When we talk about an-nas, suddenly an-nas sometimes has men and women, but sometimes it doesn't. Qawm. We keep on twisting and making the Quranic message just go completely, head over tail. This is not how we forget. Quran talks to the aql, the nafs, the bashar. It does not talk to the body. It's not something message that come for the men. It's for men and women. It's for humans. Insan in Quran and in Arabic is not gendered thing. So if we didn't have the qissa of Lut, and if you're still going to call homosexuality haram, you should really think about where you're getting Allah's deen from. And I'll stop here and I'll ask Dr. Iqbal if he has a comment. Reminder, Lut of the Quran, please don't mix that up with the Lot of the Bible. There are two different stories, completely different stories. For those who haven't watched it, I encourage you to go and watch those first two videos. Dr. Iqbal, any comments?
I think you should go further, and then we will. And at the end, I will give the comment completely.
Okay. So a lot of people have said this, and even right now, I can see a few people who have commented. Oh, brother, it should be haram. أخي, يعني هذا حرام لأن هذا وهذا كذا وكذا وكذا. Or as they will say in Urdu, लेकिन ये haram है क्योंकि ये. Or some people make up all sorts of rationale. Or 40% of Dr. Bal, with respect, even you were kind of suggesting this before, that 49% of the Aussies believe this and that, or the general. This is all fine. These are all reasons. These are valid people. But I'm going to come back to the initial topic, main topic, which is that act, no matter what I think about it, haram because Allah said so? And this is what it keeps coming down to. As Allah says, Qul, say, declare. So his instruction is here to me to talk to you. And I'm going to ask all of you this question, those who are listening today, those who will listen tomorrow. أَتُعَلِّمُونَ اللَّهَ بِدِينِكُمْ? Are you going to teach Allah your deen, his system? وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. And Allah knows what is in the samawat and what's in the earth. وَاللَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ. And Allah knows everything. أَتُعَلِّمُونَ اللَّهَ بِدِينِكُمْ. Are you going to teach Allah the deen? Astaghfirullah, a'udhu billah. I did not, if I'm being honest, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I didn't know that. I was quite comfortable saying, oh, this is halal, this is haram. It must be haram because A, B, C, D. No, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't make up deen in Allah's name. This is not your prerogative. This is not your job. You don't say that. You don't like homosexuality for whatever reason. You don't like it, work against the ideology. I'll share a personal anecdote to kind of sink this point in and make sure my position comes out clear. The other day, I think it was last week, every Friday, Saturday, we do a family night where we all gather together, the whole family, me, the missus, and the 2 children, and we try and watch something together when we have dinner. Netflix said, oh, there's this new movie called Nimona. Watch it. It was in Arabic, and I love watching Arabic dubbed Fusha movies, and Nimona was one of those few that came in. I said, oh, let's watch it. Sounds pretty interesting. It seemed child-friendly because it's got, those is animations, all this sort of stuff. I was really happy. I started this, and suddenly, out of nowhere, there's this homosexual pair. The main character is a homosexual, and he's in a relationship with his partner. And out of nowhere, they're engaging in a certain act. I had to stop that video. I had to pause, and I was not happy about it. I was not happy. I'd much rather, as a parent, have been told what I was going to encounter before I encountered it. So what I'm saying to you, as part of my experience, I disagree with this. As a parent, I have got huge problems with this. In where I live, even on LinkedIn or other email signatures, we're being forced to describe our genders. For example, this person likes to be called he/him, or they/them, or her. There's this whole variety of these new terms being bombarded at us. There's this encroachment of the liberal left that's being forced on us from a very small minority on the vast majority. I have views on that. I've got strong objections to it. But despite all of that I don't like, I'm not going to say, because I don't like it, and I think this is yucky, A, B, C, D, then Allah made it haram as well. You don't like homosexuality, make your case, make your argument. Do it in a way that the Quran expects you to do. But then expect that the other side is going to make their argument as well. Our ik or preferences do not make something haram. It's a very simple principle for the followers of the Quran. Dr. Iqbal?
Yeah, you have mentioned many things. First of all, you gave the example of Pakistan, how Rijal and Nisa, and you portrayed the whole picture of Pakistan. And definitely we need a youth over here. How these Nisas are driven by those Rijals and what is happening in Pakistan. I'm also from Pakistan, and I know about the political situations and the rulers all over. The second thing you mentioned about the words, that the words have been misinterpreted. Like somebody has just now put an example of fahisha. What is actual fahisha? Fahisha or shahawa I mean, like in Persian, shahwa is sexual desire, but in Arabic, I don't think it's sexual desire. It's just desire. So we have changed the meanings of the words, and then we have taken the Quran to whatever we think is. Thirdly, yes, there is a good comment by Anjum that HIV is spread through homosexuality. 100%. HIV is one of the source which comes through homosexuality, and that is why people, especially like me, doctors, they advise them that homosexuality should not be done, or like in Australia, if it has to be done if they want it, then we give them certain advices. So these 2-3 things you have mentioned, and they have come up. Most important thing is that you told that we have been given aql, and that is the most important thing, and that the Quran is a reminder. Yes, Quran is a reminder. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فَجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. You know everything, what is fujur and what is taqwa. You know about it, and the Quran is only reminding you to do and not to do certain things. And lastly, the slides which you have made all out of this, putting your sort of what you want to say today, were very good, very good. And I think we should at the end ask people what they think about it, rather than telling us what is right or what is wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So on that note, we have pretty much finished our part of the talk, and I'll put the link up on the. I'll show this here as well. It is pinned on the chat for those who, if you do want to join. If not, I've already seen a few questions that people have been asking, so I can talk about them as well. We are not going to be here more than 2 hours at the max, probably even less. But if there are people who want to come and have a chat, you're welcome. End of the day, please, one thing I'll just ask quite respectfully, please refer back to the Quran. Don't tell me, or don't tell us rather, on the panel today and the rest, or this was wrong because there are diseases, or because this is not the time for that discussion. What we're really talking about is, does the Quran call this act what we think it does? Is that what the Qawm of Lut were doing? If Allah did not make it haram, why didn't you make it haram? And what could we be doing? So I saw a couple of good questions. What jurisprudensic? I'm struggling with my words. I'm starting over. What jurisprudence do we? What principles can we apply to help us? And yeah, sure. Come and suggest your views on that. But yeah, this is not a topic of bashing any one group or anything like that. This is beyond that. Okay, I'm just going to quickly go through the comments. Dr. Bal, anything that you picked up on the comments?
I think we should listen to the audience.
Okay, so we have got one brother. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Paladin. Can you hear us? Dr. Paladin. I'm going to count till 3, and then I'll put you back in the backstage. Dr. Paladin, do you listen to us? Can you hear us? 1, 2, 3. There might be a problem with the microphone. So I'll take a few comments, Dr. Bal, while we wait for people. So assalamu alaikum to everybody who had joined, Shahnawaz as well, and Rabbit. It's an interesting theory. Yep. Well, these are many things we don't know for sure. And if I keep going. Thank you, student and Sister Sadi. A lot of people are making money. Dr. Bal, do you want to comment on that, on this point?
Yeah, I know what they mean with this.
Yeah. It has become a business, unfortunately.
Mm.
Dr. Paladin, do you hear us now? No,
Something wrong.
Yeah, that's fine. I think if he listens back, he will know that we did take him in. We were trying to talk, but it just wasn't coming through. A couple of other comments came in. believe in numbers. Sorry, student, I don't know what the context was when you were saying that. Brother Saltre made a pretty interesting point. If you want to find corruption, follow the money. And if you want to find truth, follow the evidence. Dr. Iqbal, comments from you on that?
Good, very good.
Well, we're too many Pakistanis here. We really should have a few more people. I think it's not a Pakistani club, guys. We're talking English, so we're not just the Pakistani people and guys that are talking to ourselves.
I'm happy to see so many Pakistanis.
Yeah, Pakistanis are everywhere. We are everywhere. Assalamu alaikum, Muhammad Arif. Can you hear us? I don't know if there's a problem.
What is wrong? Is wrong? Is it from your side? No, it flicked. I think
I can hear. Brother Muhammad Arif, can you hear us?
Is there a problem with microphone?
Yeah.
Check from
Dr.
your
Paladin?
side. Paladin again.
Dr. Arif, do you hear us?
Why nobody?
In the comments, can you guys just confirm for us? Can you hear us? I'd like to think the conversation is happening. Can you hear us okay? Okay, whilst we wait, I'm going to assume that they can. Yep, no, they can hear us. They can hear us. So
can hear you.
Yeah. So this brother, I had a discussion with this brother on the comments, and yes, those videos, they did spark very emotional discussions. Dr. Iqbal, why? Let me ask you a question. Why do people become emotionally defensive when we talk about a topic like this?
Well,
what is the emotional angle there?
This is the human nature, and especially in Muslims, emotions are taking over intelligence. Muslims are more emotional than intelligence. They are. I mean, they get more emotional rather than thinking it in an intelligent way. That's a makeup of a Muslim.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the case. Assalamu alaikum to you, Muhammad Kamil Bhai. Yep. I'm gonna try Arif Bhai one more time. Arif, can you hear us?
What's wrong?
People can hear us, so it's obviously
people can hear us. But why Dr. Paladin and Arif, they are not making sound?
No, I think we shouldn't flag a dead horse, as they say, Dr. Iqbal. I think we have already, I think, covered what we wanted to cover. So it's okay for us to be brief and to the point. So did you want to have any? We can try and wrap up early, if that's okay with you, Dr. Iqbal.
I think everything has been said now.
Yeah. So maybe let's do a summary of where we are. So do you want to have your final words on what we've talked about in this series so far, Dr. Iqbal? And what's your experience being?
The final word coming from me would be that Allah has not made it halal, but we are nobody to make it halal. Okay? So I'm talking about two different things. Allah has not made it haram, but we are not here to make it halal. We still condemn it. It's a bad thing. Pedophilia, necrophilia, homosexuality, lesbianism. Me personally, and you, both, we are sailing in the same boat. We condemn it.
Absolutely. All right. So I will offer final words from me.
Try once more. Try once more with Dr. Paladin.
No, he's put a comment in the private chat. He's saying that he's got net problems. He can listen, but he can't talk. Yeah. So I think there might be something wrong. Same thing. Nothing from him. Yeah.
Anyone else?
I did hear. No, there's no one else. I did hear yesterday that there were some problems with the internet in Pakistan, and maybe that's the reason. But for those who listen in the future, this Quran, it does not belong to any one particular nation or any particular race, anything like that. So anybody who is interested, they should talk about the Quran. They should feel very comfortable. And in the Urdu series, Dr. Iqbal and I actually quite liked the fact that whenever we would talk, we would get a lot of Hindus come on. Isn't that right, Dr. Iqbal?
Yes, very. And we got agnostics.
Agnostics, atheists, ex-Muslims, Hindus.
Yes, and even one of the Ahmadi.
Yes, yes. Yeah,
yes.
And that is awesome, because so long the focus is on the Quran. And I've been personally honest. There have been one or two people from every group who has taught me something new that I did not know before. We might have Brother Azhar. Can you hear us? Azhar Iqbal. Do you hear us? Going once, twice, thrice. I don't know. I think there might be. Yeah, we'll move on, Dr. Iqbal. I think there's something wrong with either YouTube or StreamYard. I don't know. It's not working. Us two can talk, but nobody else. That's fine. We'll wrap up, and those interested can join us in the next one, inshallah. So I'll offer a few final words from me, and then we'll wrap up on this third video of the series. So as Dr. Iqbal said, I will pretty much echo what he was saying, which is we should be very, very, very hesitant, if not scared, of calling something out as haram in Allah's name. We are not here to complete the deen for Allah. Allah did not forget to mention something to you and I. If He did not say something as haram, whatever reasons we might have for disliking something, don't parrot, don't put words in Allah's mouth. Don't make up lies. This is not what a Muslim does. And as a final word from me on personal experiences and advice to those who are listening, and don't be stuck to what I say. Don't be stuck to Dr. Iqbal's views on the Quran. Don't be stuck to any of this nujum, whether they're traditional or Quran only, or whatever the circle might be. Don't be stuck to any one person's bait. Keep learning. Keep growing. Don't be constrained by the blind spot or blind spots of your teachers. Go past them. You owe nothing to anybody but Allah, really. Yes, they're all your teachers, and you should be thankful to them, and that always be the case. But the idea of knowledge is that we build on the shoulders of those who went before us. We build on top of the giants that were before us. We don't discredit them. We don't forget them. We don't disparage them. But ultimately, we are all talking about and from the Quran, the open source book that has remained like so without any versions or patches for 1450 odd years. That is Allah's kalam to you and me. Let's stick to what Allah says, and let's not get into what Allah does not talk about. And with that, we've just got somebody come in. This is classic. Dr. Iqbal, shall we try?
Yeah, pick somebody. I would love to hear from them. Carlo.
Brother Carlo, can you hear us?
Sorry, mate. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
If I may, what is the Quranic response then to what we're seeing today as homosexuality? Because there is one camp that wants to throw everyone off cliff. There's another camp like you who seems to have retranslated the verses in a more conducive to the mainstream thought. I am not. My mind is not made up either way. I think that we need to, the Quran provides us with guidance to live our lives by. But what is the response? I think the response, the Quranic response to the homosexuality, LGBTQI, whatever you want to call it, problem is lacking. I mean, not the Quranic response, but our understanding of the Quranic response is lacking. So, what would you say? How do we deal with the?
Yeah, your African accent is very strong. Dr. Iqbal, I've done a lot of talking. Do you want to respond to brother?
No, I couldn't make out what he was saying, because
he was saying what should our response be to this agenda that we're seeing in today's society? What should our response be as Muslims?
Well, as we clearly said, that it is not haram by Allah, but it is not halal, and it should not be practiced. Homosexuality is absolutely should not be practiced. Being a doctor, I can give you so many things coming from the medical side and from the social aspects also. A professor of sociology or somebody will tell you what impact it does to the society. So it should not be practiced clearly.
Yeah, I will temper this with this, and this is something me going against what I obviously have predispositions for. There is this other party, and I obviously don't know what they feel, but if they have got a view that, you know, if they are part of this movement and they feel quite strongly about it, they do have the right, from a Quranic perspective, in my understanding, to make their position, present their position in front of others, like you, like me, like anybody. As Muslims, I think our response is to reason with logic, is to put forward arguments based upon logic, based upon evidence, not based upon emotion, not based upon ik. There's this very philosophical term called the ik principle, which is not very, not very academic, but the idea is that just because you don't like something or you find it disgusting does not make it wrong. There are certain tastes, like broccoli. Children don't like it. Doesn't make that as wrong for them. So I think from a Muslim's perspective, as I said, I don't like what Netflix did when I started watching that movie with my children, and I made a complaint. And I think as people with the ability to, who got the dollar, you know, we buy things from, we have services, we should object. Of whatever LinkedIn, I'm a big part of LinkedIn, is obviously part of my career. If I see something that's wrong, the least I can do is to say, well, you, the company, you should change your policies because A, B, and C. And this is all, in my opinion, following Lut's, Lut, if you take one. If a society starts going and forming a certain nucleus against something that I think is wrong, I have the right to go up, stand up and object. It does not mean that I go start smashing or start, I think there was this guy in California, the Pakistani guy, sadly, who went and bombed the nightclub, a homosexual nightclub. That is not our response. Our response should be based upon empathy, that there are people who are going through certain parts of their lives, that experiences that maybe we don't understand, we don't share, but also that if we disagree, just like them, we have the right to present our arguments. But Carlo, does that kind of answer your question?
Sort of, yes. Look, my biggest concern are, no matter, your truth is your truth in terms of your perception, the way you see things. So for the homosexual teenager, for example, his truth is that I am going through this, and people are rejecting me because of the way I feel. I can't help for the way I feel, but this is how I feel. There was an imam in Cape Town, who in South Africa, who, for example, grew up feeling this way. His parents thought that it would cure him by sending him to a Darul Uloom. He ended up in Pakistan, where he studied to be an imam. He came back still feeling the same, and he was I think someone told him to read Kalima again because of this, and he started his own little masjid, where he supports gay and homosexual Muslims. The thing is, yes, we speak out. You can say we speak out against it, but then again, do we speak out against it according to you against something that's not necessarily explicitly haram in the Quran? How do we support these people in a manner that is conducive to Quranic values? Because practically, I still see there's a lacking in the Muslim or in the Quranic discourse on how to actually support these people. How do we help the imam? How do we help the teenager? We can't just raise our hands and say it's wrong, but how do we actually practically help these people? I don't know.
This is a very, this is a very, very difficult topic, Carlo. I'm going to summarize what you said because your voice is not very clear. Are you saying that you yourself have gone through and you find yourself to be, going through those tendencies, and that you have been disowned by the family. Is that kind of what you were saying?
No. I'm saying for those people who are like
Okay.
those imams who are like that particular imam, for example. He's an imam. He's struggling with his sexuality. There is a teenager, for example, who's struggling with his or her, a Muslim teenager or even a Christian teenager, whoever it is, who's struggling with their sexuality. And it's their reality. It's not their desire. They don't want to be lewd. They don't want to be, but they are struggling. What is the answer? If we're saying it wrong, what is the answer? How do we respond Islamically, Quranically?
It's a very loaded question. Dr. Bal, did you hear him okay? I'd like you to answer that.
The voice was breaking,
okay.
so
That's fine. I'll summarize. But what he's saying is that he knows an imam who is struggling with his sexuality, and he's also putting forward an example of a teenager who might be going through this, and they, for whatever reason, say that they are this way. They are this way. They're born this way. So what should the behavior be? How should we behave with those people? How should they behave? How should they develop the iman?
Well, to me, as a student of medicine, there are two things which a person, if has got, he is prone to homosexuality. One is that hormonal imbalance, and number two, the structure of the society. So we can treat that guy by looking at his hormones, number one. Number two, we can send him to a good psychologist or a person who can give him advice that whatever you are thinking is not the normal norm of the society, and you are thinking out of the box. So these two things can always be there for a person who is struggling with this type of tendency. I don't know why. I mean, we have to mention ulamas and imams like that. Well, anybody. It can be me, it can be you, it can be an alim, it can be a taxi driver, can have this tendency. But we have to take it as a stigma in the society, and then be empathic with him, not to curtail him and not to abuse him, and be empathic with him and help him. If he really wants a help, we can help him. And that should be our approach.
This is a very complex topic. It's got so many layers on it that is very difficult to actually start peeling them away. So I think society, as you said, Dr. Iqbal, is a very important one. So depending upon which country you've brought up on, exactly. I would say, and this is me not speaking with evidence, and this is, by the way, not a Quranic position. This is my personal understanding, my personal view. I'm more than happy to be wrong. But I think a lot of people saying that they feel a certain way today is being controlled by what they see in the media. So there's peer pressure. So all of this new PC language and all of these new terms, etc., they kind of end up justifying or having you try something that you might not have tried otherwise. So in a way, the pendulum has swung too much on the other side, where you would not normally have gone and done something, but now you do because everybody else is saying it's okay. Or it's the taboo has now become normalized to the sense where you do not find a problem in trying it. But that still leaves those people who are genuinely struggling. And this is I'm going to disagree with Dr. Iqbal a little bit here. And this is me talking not from a Quranic perspective, sorry. What I'm saying, I based from the principles of the Quran, but I don't say this is what Allah says. This is my opinion as a member of the society. I don't personally think there's anything psychologically wrong with a person who thinks or feels a certain way. Does the Quran talk about gender? In my opinion, it does not. Does it talk about sexuality? I've talked about it in the Urdu series. I don't think it does. It leaves that topic broadly open, and that's quite a bizarre observation on my part, at least, to see why is that the case. If there is a person, there's a teenager, who are genuinely going through, and that's not derived from pressure of the society or peers, anything like that, or an imam or a middle-aged man who finds out that he is wired a certain way. I don't know enough about the genetic part. Dr. Iqbal does. I don't know. But from the little that I've heard, people who I've spoken to, people who I've heard from, I interact with a lot of people. I have flirted with with somebody who was homosexual. He was completely okay. He did his own, he had his own life, and we, as we were students, me and my other friends, we just flattered with him, and that never had a problem. If there are people like that, Quranically, I think, as I said before, we should be empathetic, that these are experiences that maybe we don't understand. We haven't lived their lives. I don't know what their reality is like. But from a Quranic perspective, I'm meant to be empathetic towards them. I don't take life away from them. I might not understand it. I might not agree with it, but I don't say this is haram. So I don't think the capacity to become any better Muslim changes as a result of what they feel. Brother Carlo, anything else?
And yeah, it is a tough one, because also as a counselor, as a Muslim counselor, I always, and as someone who doesn't want to oppress another, I always grapple with these concepts. Is in that, how are we fair to the discourse? The excessive promotion of this agenda now, which seems more political than anything else, it's making it increasingly difficult to deal with, because now you have people who were never confused before about their sexuality, who are now starting to think, oh, maybe I am, or maybe I'm not, etc., etc., which is damaging society in my view. While I agree that we should not ostracize, oppress anyone who has any view, even if it is explicitly against the Quran. I'm talking about your personal preference views, not societal views. We need to find a more coherent answer as Muslims, because we claim to have the book of guidance. We claim to have something that would bring mankind out of darkness into the light. And so therefore, how do we practically do this in this case? Because it is a reality. That's the one thing. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is the one verse you translate Rijal as the powerful and Nisa as the weaker, or the not ostracized, the vulnerable in society. Number one, does that work all over, or is your view contextual? And then the verse about when it's Lut, where he asks, would you, I don't know the reference offhand, do you prefer men over women, a Rijal over Nisa? How do you translate that verse?
Yeah, by the way, your voice has become very clear now. So whatever you changed on your microphone, yeah. And I'm sorry if I was being a bit cheeky. Despite your African accent, I understand you much better now. So if I answer the second one first, and then Dr. Iqbal, if you wouldn't mind answering the first question. So from my understanding, I've looked throughout the Quran. Rijal and Nisa, for me, throughout the Quran, are not referring to genders. They're not, and this is how it is. Even for those ayats where apparently it's nikah be talked about, or distribution of when somebody dies, even those ayat I don't find. And I've been talking about them in the Urdu series for quite a while. Maybe one day I'll bring that up in English as well. I don't find men as Rijal. I don't find Nisa as women. Any Nisa, any body, any person whose potential is still to come, or ajal, or generations that are still to come. So anything that's delayed, even things that are delayed for whatever reason. So if you want something, and it's not there right now, a new model of something, that too, for me, in the frame of the mafhum of the Quranic term, is going to fall under Nisa. So in that particular ayah that you're referring to, I've gone through all of those, Brother Carlo, in the video 2 of the series. But yeah, there's nothing that's being talked to men about them going ahead and approaching them sexually instead of the women. There's nothing like that. Dr. Bal, did you want to answer the first part of his question?
Yeah, Carlo rightly mentioned that you have said that we should be very empathetic with those people, and I endorse 101% that we should not be abusive. We should not have our own views about them. We should be very empathetic. Secondly, that you said that Rijal and Nisa, as Musa has said, that in Quran it's not actually men and women. And the third, you said that about the ayah which was in Surah Araf. Innakum latatuna rijal. Tatuna, you said prefer. No, tatun is not prefer. Tatun is that you approach, or you arrive, or you put forth, or you reach, or you happen. So it's not prefer. So tatun is not prefer. And if that ayat innakam latatuna rijal shahwa min dunin nisa, if I translate it into English, it would be something like that. You want or desire to be self-sufficient, or you want to become dominant, and you have lost the honor of your weaker group. That is the correct translation of this part of what you mentioned. Prefer men over women. No, it's not preferring men over women. It's about a psyche of getting dominant or getting self-sufficient, and omitting or dishonoring the weaker group of societies.
Or at the expense of the weaker group.
Yes, yes. It is happening in the capitalist society, as we can see over here in Pakistan and other countries, that these capitalists, how they are exploiting the poor people, or the weaker part of the people. They are the king makers, and they are the kings. So what they can do is they are doing it, and they are just dishonoring the weaker group of society, putting taxes on them and whatsoever politically, which you can see. And I think that is what was mentioned by Allah in this context of Lut's story, not the sexual thing which we consider, because we took the wrong word. Prefer is not the word for tatun. Approach.
Yes. So
okay.
if you go back to the series as well, Itian, where it comes from, ata shakhs, came a person. Throughout the Quran, whenever I saw ata or Itian, it's nothing in a sexual manner. Even Allah says ata Allah. I think about amrullah, for example, like this. There's no sexual stuff. Problem is when we forcibly apply, that we like I saw Havas Jinsi. So if we force ourselves to look through a certain prism, then things look that way to us. If we look at how those terms are used by the Quran within itself, the message is very coherent.
No, understood. I really appreciate. I'm still not 100% convinced about Rijal and Nisa. I really appreciate it if you could make some time at some point in the future to do a video in English, so that I can better understand. And I think I should do the exercise myself as well, and go and test your theory with every other verse that mentions Rijal and Nisa. I don't know if the verses on menstruation.
Yep, I've covered them.
Is it
no
Nisa?
Menstruation.
Is Nisa used?
There's no menstruation. Mahid. It's not Haid, it's Mahid. There's no menstruation
Mahid.
in the Quran. There's no women who are bleeding once a month that the Quran had to tell those stupid Arabs of that time who didn't even know some of these very basic things. The problem is that we have, and there are quite a lot of these verses. So do not marry, about nikah, do not marry who your fathers have married, as if those Arabs were so stupid that they didn't even know that they should not be marrying their mothers or grandmothers when their grandfathers or fathers pass away. All of these terms, aba, these that have been talked about, these nisa, these rijal, we have constrained them. Something I went through in great detail in the Urdu series, by applying the grammar that was the grammar in the Arabic of the Bani Abbas time onto the Quran. So yeah, the words that we take, they marry up with what they were writing in the time of Bani Abbas. All this madhahib being created, the fiqh being fossilized. Now we're getting this parallel religion being developed, where rijal this, nisa this, malakat amanukum are all the slaves, etc., etc. But they don't marry up with how the Quran uses them. So that was for me the biggest shock. When you start from learning Fusha Arabic, you go to the Quran and you say, oh, the thing doesn't match up. We're going to say anything, Brother Kalu, or did I cut you off? If not, we'll...
No, yep. It's fine. I just wanted to know if there were are there any earlier examples of this understanding of Rijal, like from the very early times of Islam, where Rijal is actually referred to, like references or examples of that, where, like, before the change, before the understanding. Obviously, the people, while the Prophet was alive, if what you are saying is correct, they understood it as it was intended. Otherwise, it's kind of pointless. So are there any earlier writings of this understanding that you know of?
Even in, I think, I can't remember which dictionary, Lisan al-Arab maybe, even that has an example of a woman being called a rijal because of what she does in the society. And this is true in English as well. We say, she is the man, she wears the trousers. Now, this is no longer correct for me to say that, but if you go back 50 years ago, you say, oh, in that relationship, the missus wears the pants. You know what I mean? So you find the similar concept even there. But the problem is wider than that, Carlo, and that is, maybe don't even start with child's terms like that. Just pick something really simple. Dr. Iqbal and I, for a long time, have been picking term by term in the Quran, like tasbih, not controversial ones, tasbih, dhikr, al-kitab, and things that are, we think they mean what they mean. But or even qatl was a little bit of a controversial one. But we looked at them and we said, hey, in the Quran, these are being used differently. We use these same words in Urdu in a certain way. Arabic of today uses in a specific way. Quran uses them differently. And then when you find term after term after term after term, and then you say, oh, these things in the Quran don't match up with what we've been taught all the time, is there a systemic problem? And that is where you end up with.
Yeah, so what we're saying is that by and large, the translators are imposing they all are imposing the tradition, not traditional, but the traditional meanings of the words onto their translation and trying to make them fit, basically. And that's why there's so much consistency across the translators with these terms.
It's the scholars of 9th century whose understanding, whose gendered understanding still applies to the Quran and constrains it. And no one is willing to get past that. That is a problem. But this is not something, I don't know how much you've been researching, but as I said in the very beginning part, at least 1970s onwards and before, even in the time of Shafi'i, if you go and read his Risala, there are these conversations that Shafi'i is having against this unnamed person who rejects the very premise of this new foundation that they're now beginning to form based upon the Quran and this and that and that. This is a much deeper discussion that one needs to have. But Carlo, shall we take a leave? If that's okay. I've got a few of the people.
Yeah, I'm covered. Yeah, no, that's right. Thank you.
Thank you
for all your time and work that you're doing.
Yeah, no, thank you for joining us, Brother Carlo. Assalamu alaikum to you. We've got 2 more brothers, Dr. Iqbal. Shall we
just
try them?
I'd like to hear from them.
Brother Riaz, assalamu alaikum. Do you hear us? No? Brother Riaz, do you hear us?
Assalamu alaikum, Al-Moses. I'm listening to you. An innocent question of mine is that, is homosexuality halal by Quran or not? This is my simple question.
Have you seen the video from the beginning, brother? We talked about this particular section for about 10 minutes. You seen the video from the beginning?
I have received signal after this time.
Okay, so if you wouldn't mind, just in the interest of time, I can put you in the backstage for now. If you can still rewind back on your phone, go back and find that section. I think section 3. Is it halal because it's not made haram? We talked about this. And if you still have a question, we'll take you back up. Is that okay?
Okay, right.
Okay, shukran, brother. We've got one more. Hussein, assalamu alaikum. Do you hear us? Hussein.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello.
we can.
Sir, this is again the same question like you before said, like in Jannah, like there is no couple concept. Either male can talk to male, female talk to female. So only this I don't understand how it is halal in Quran, the homosexuality. This is the only question. It's very getting me confused.
I didn't understand that. Say that again, brother. In Jannah, what happens?
Like you before, mostly I listen to all lessons. You told me one in Jannah like there's a hoor concept, you know, the hoor. Like, so you told like it is not like there will be we cannot say there's a couple. Man to man will be there, or woman to woman will be there. Just like, you know, 72 hoor.
We're getting a few things mixed here. So I have not talked about this in English, but in Urdu, if you've seen that video, I have talked about hur and how this is not meant to be pretty women. So in Jannah, it's not just men who are going, and in there, they're not getting pretty women as a reward. If that's the video you're talking about, then that is the reference. But in this series on Lut, we have not covered that. We've not talked about that at all.
Okay, the question is very, you know, it is getting us confused when we talk about the homosexuality is halal by Quran. So I'm listening, by the way. You can put me on backstage. I'm listening.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
if you wouldn't mind, brother Hussein, I think section number 3 of today's talk, if you go back and rewind, you'll find we've had quite a bit of discussion on that. If it's not haram, does that become halal? And I think we've put a reasoned approach towards that question. So if you wouldn't mind, maybe have a listen of it and then let us know in the private chat and we'll pick you back up. Sound good?
Sure, sir. Sure. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, shukran. So that's a good question, Dr. Iqbal. Maybe you want to answer this question here.
What is that?
You can.
What
I've marked
for
this.
the young boy who has gay tendency without being exposed. Well, as I said, there are certain hormonal balances playing up in the body, and that has got a role of having such types of tendencies. So, going to a hormone specialist or endocrinologist, and he checks the hormone levels, and things get resolved. So this happens.
Yeah, I don't know how to say this name. Anali Zahid. I'm probably butchering your name, so apologies. But yeah, you could say that. You could say that something not haram and living it like that is a gray area. And in that gray area, you can already see that Dr. Iqbal and I are on a slightly different pitches. So question, how can the message of Allah be confusing and not distinct enough? So my answer on that is, I'll refer back to what I said before. You're not reading the Quran to find a derived manual of everything that you can or cannot do. He expects us throughout our generations, throughout our lives, to use our minds, have these discussions in our societies without the fear of being targeted, without the fear of having your rights taken away from you. As Carlo said, being ostracized, nothing like that. I don't like something. I have the right to put my arguments against it, just as that other group should have the ability to put the arguments forward for them. But in no way or form can either one of us should say that this thing is haram if Allah did not call it haram. Once, if Allah did not call something haram, there's no gray area. It is very clear. It is not haram. Where does it sit on the spectrum? Where does it sit on the spectrum of, completely legitimately recommended we should all do to, it's not really good, but we're going to let this in exceptional cases, etc. Where does it sit in the spectrum? That's for a family to decide. That's for a group to decide. That's for a society to decide. And these are things that are left for people of aql to talk, discuss, debate in accordance to their times. Dr. Iqbal, did you have any comment on that?
Very clear, very clear, very, very clear. Your answer was very clear. I think there's nothing to add to it. It's not a gray area. It's not a gray area.
So, Brother MM, this is it a Quranic question? Perhaps. As parents, we have the right to teach our children what we think, hopefully based on the Quran, is the right behavior. And as such, if you have got an evidence-backed opinion, and then based upon that, you want your family to follow this out, whilst giving them the option to make up their own minds that is different to yours in the future, then that is their right. But there is this agenda out there, and I acknowledge that, where it is becoming very difficult to be part of the norm. The minority opinion, for whatever reason, has become militarized, where you can't get away from that agenda. But again, this is not a Quranic thing. Allah does not call it haram, and we should be okay with that. Brother Usaf was saying, we have the same attention we try to. Did you understand this, Dr. Iqbal?
Well declared, all have the same attention when we try to right the wrong from the traditional narrative. Had this problem for many years in my career being Durban, South Africa. Yusuf. I think he is also from South Africa, like Carlo, and there are so many things happening over there that people are really getting inquisitive about these things. As you said, that it has to be decided by the parents, by the society, by the leaders of the society, by the think tank of the society, that this should be practiced in the society or not. Well, it depends. In certain countries, it has been made legalized and they are practicing it. What can we do? But for personal reasons, of a personal opinion of me and Musa, we both agree that it should be condemned.
So this is an interesting one, where, again, I'll be very clear and reiterate, I am not calling it haram. Astaghfirullah, I cannot do that. This is my personal preference, but I don't have the ability to put words in Allah's mouth in terms of what He said or he didn't do. There was another discussion Dr. Iqbal and I were having the other day on the same topic, and you made a very good point, Dr. Iqbal. So it was something to that effect. If you are in a society where this has become so much against what you're comfortable with that you find it very difficult to raise a family, so you are of a certain opinion and you think this is evidence-backed, not because your parents said so in your culture, but you genuinely think this is wrong, or it says the pendulum has shifted so much on the left side that suddenly, this has become suffocating for you, your society, your family, etc. Maybe the country or that society, the city is not the place for you. Maybe it's time to pack up and leave. Isn't there an ayah in the Quran which says Allah's out is big, is huge? You should do hijrah.
Yeah. I know some of my friends in Australia, they are struggling with the same sort of problems because the society is going another way, and they being Muslims and they being conservatives and all those things, they don't like it. So they are in a fix.
So what we should be really doing is having these discussions like today, maybe we don't all agree. And I think, as I always said, it is fine. Allah has made us into these different qabail. So what's the ayah? لِتَعَارَفُوا. So we can come to know each other, and so we can discuss these points of debate in accordance with the Quranic principles, which are, you bring hatu burhanakum, you bring your evidence, I bring my evidence. Let's talk it out. Let's discuss it. There should be compromises where we can make them, to make sure that the society as an overall entity continues to prosper and grow, and then no one segment is being marginalized. It should not be one extreme or the other.
Yeah, agree.
Okay, I think Dr. Iqbal, there's nobody else, so maybe we do a last call and then we finally wrap up. That's okay?
Is there somebody?
No, I think we've talked to everybody.
Okay, so let's take a leave.
Yep, you want to say your last words again? Have your last words changed based upon the chats that we've had since?
It's the same. We don't make it halal, and it is not haram by Allah. So these are two different things. We are not making it halal. We condemn it.
Okay, so for me, I've kind of... Sorry, go on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so for me, I won't regurgitate what I've said before as my last words before they got hijacked. Not hijacked, before our brothers decided to join us late. I will just say something else, which is, when we read the Quran, my suggestion to everybody is, please put away your preconceived notions. Read the text for what the text says. Don't be influenced by the translator, including me. Don't be influenced by my blind spots. Take it from me, take from my bait, take from others. But as I think Brother Carlo said, go and cross-reference for yourself against the Quran. If you don't get to the same place where I am, that's okay. Maybe there's a higher sama, and there's a higher understanding that you will get to one day, or maybe there's a blind spot that's going to keep me behind. But that's all right. We are all here to help each other. We're all here to help grow each other. We are meant to adhere to the Quran the only thing that the messenger Muhammad brought with him, the only risala he had. Let's go back to it. Let's continue to read it. And let's, if I go back to Lut, let's find people like Lut in our societies. Pakistan, I know, as one country at the very least, needs a Lut. We need not a, I won't say names of politicians. We need a Lut who stands up and says, this is right, that is wrong. No more in my society will I allow the Nisa, the people who've been left behind, the generation still to come, to be ostracized, to have their rights taken over, taken up in interest of those who are powerful, who continue to seek more power, shahwatan, in the desire. Let's not be part of the society. We want that Lut. And if we find a Lut like that, you and I, or anybody else out there, try and be a part of the Lut's al. Be a worker for that Lut. Help the mission. But if you find that mission to become part of his ahl, become this part of this brotherhood where you are really linked together. You're on one millah, you're on one principle, you're one people with one mission. You are going to get your society right. Class struggles, no more. Be part of that, and let that be the the parting words from me on Lut and how we should take his grand legacy and apply this to our societies. With that, we take our leave until the next time. From both of us, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.